For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:07 on CJAD. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Dan Delmar, along with my co-host from Fuller Landau, Josh Miller. Welcome back, Josh.
Good evening, Dan.
And we have a very entertaining show planned tonight. The gang from Total Entertainment is here.
Very entertaining, you know. Always love a story that ends in a party. And these guys make parties for a living. So welcome to Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment. Why don't we get started right away and tell us exactly what does the company do today?
Well, you know what, after close to 20 years doing this now, the best way to describe it is we produce events. So we start with creating an event from the ground up, producing everything from lighting to decor to entertainment, audio visuals, games, attractions, depending on the type of event we're dealing with. Because we deal with both private and corporate markets, private market, whether it's bar mitzvahs, whether it's weddings, corporate market, trade shows, store launches, fashion events, we really cross the gamut and get to work with very diverse clientele.
Is it like whether it's the music and entertainment and whatever the party needs?
A through Z. Really, that's the best way to describe it. It's from the start, from the conception and the creation of the event, right through producing it and having every guest there having a blast. So it's really across the gamut.
What makes for a successful party?
First and foremost, the people, the spirit of the guests that are there. We can produce the most outstanding event. We can have the most amazing light show. We can have the best entertainers in the world. The people need to be there and need to have that spirit with them.
So I mean, that's what you're doing today, but you didn't start there. You guys must have started with maybe some smaller parties or whatever it may be. Tell us how you got going.
Oh, it's a long story, but to sum it up, in a simple way, I was 13 years old. I was a DJ, a mobile DJ, and in those days it was a lot different than the DJs we would see today. It's evolved into a complete animation package where your DJ not only picks music and plays it, but he gets on a microphone and gets out there with the crowd. In my day, it was there was no such thing as a wireless microphone, so you were rather trapped behind your equipment. And this is something I did for many, many years. Always wanted to give it up and then just couldn't because it paid very well. It was a hobby that helped me while I was going to school. It was a hobby that always generated revenue for me. So when other kids were at my age were working in stores, I was working one night a week, making hundreds of dollars, and it was great. Then you reach a certain age where you say, well, I really can't do this too much longer. And I was about to give it up. And then the market kind of changed where somebody said, hey, get out there and use your voice, have a good time with the crowd, get into it. And I did. And that's, I believe, you think you would agree, Lauren, that's when the business kind of changed, the whole industry changed. The money got higher. And it was very hard to say, hey, I had enough. So I was already in my late 20s, going into my 30s. I was working full-time as a controller and director of operations for a company here in Montreal. Still doing this on the side, and said I had enough. And then Lauren, who was working for a company that rented equipment to me. In those days, we didn't own anything. We just rented it and had it transported for us. Said, no, don't give it up. I'm going to work with you and book more parties, and I'll do one, you'll do one, or we'll work together. And that essentially evolved into a company today that's doing, quite well.
Did you find that when you guys hooked up together, was it because there was demand, or you didn't want to be alone when you started out this business?
Oh, demand, for sure. Because again, remember, it was that transition period where it wasn't just playing the music, it was really getting out there and getting the crowd going. Today, it's more than that. Today, it's dancing, and most animators get out there and they'll do everything from the latest dance moves to standing on their head. And one thing I should mention, in those days, and even today, I cannot dance and I cannot ski. So I wasn't the guy for that, and I was already too old.
It's a good thing it's radio. So where do you make that transition? Where do you draw the line to say, you know what, I have a steady job, I have a wife, a family. Mm-hmm. Where do you say, you know what, I'm about to give that up, give up the steadiness, and take a chance, take the plunge into my own business? What were the thoughts that went through your head?
Very risky. I was 1995 or 96. I was 35 years old. I was married. I had one baby, and I had another one on the way, if I remember correctly. And the support of my family, particularly my wife, could not have done it without her. We knew it would be risky. that stage in life, you have mortgages, you have financial commitments, and you also feel that your business that you've developed, your hobby business, you know the kind of revenues that are coming in. The events were booked. You have a general idea. So we felt that it was time to make the move. Also, you get pretty fed up working for somebody, and you feel, hey, I can do this, or time to move on. It's risky, and there were days, and I'm sure you would agree, Lauren, where we said, what are we doing? Why did we do this? But you realize quickly that there's many benefits to come along with self-employment, some of which we discussed prior. And I'll use hypothetical numbers here.
Did it require some? I mean, I don't know if you went in, you had a little nest egg built up. Did you have to put in your own money? Was it difficult to kind of start up with capital?
I am very proud today to tell you that we started this company with nothing, really. And I do believe that was probably the biggest challenge we faced. We had no capital, and essentially we had to take the money that we earned from the various events at that time and invest it into the business. So, somebody once taught me, you make $1, you keep 50 cents for yourself, and you keep the other 50 cents in the business. And we just eventually developed equity and got the support of our suppliers in terms of establishing credit with them. And then Lauren did a fantastic job on the marketing end, booking the parties and events for us. And
did it take you long for people to start taking you seriously? I mean, you're a kid, you're a DJ, you're kind of running parties. Did they look at you ever and say, you weren't a business person, you were just kind of having fun? At what point did they start taking you seriously?
Well, I'll let you know when that day comes. No, I'm kidding. Truthfully, what happens is the transition was not so much from the DJ end to the businessman, because we have both divisions. We had the total entertainment side that ran for the beginning of the 90s, and then 96 we brought in the events side of it, and that was the biggest transition and the hardest changeover, because that's where corporations had to look at you. Major billion-dollar corporations had to sign a check to your company, and they wanted to know, why am I writing a check for $1 million to these guys? Who are they? And that's when the event side, and the biggest challenge, I mean, we still laugh about it now, because there are days where we look back, and my wife calls them the craft dinner days, where we had to eat craft dinner so that we can put money into the business to help grow. We moved to bigger offices, created a little bit of that, I don't want to call it smoke and mirrors, but created that image where if a client came in, they felt, wow, okay, I'm surrounded by a company who really has a great style and understands it.
It must be interesting starting out and dealing with banks, and I look forward to a little bit of their unique story about banking in Montreal and beyond Quebec.
Our guests on today's Entrepreneur, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Entertainment, 514-790-0991, and Star Talk, star 8255 on Bell Mobility. The program continues after the break at 7:15 right now.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:19 on CJAD. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. Our guest this evening from Total Events and Entertainment, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt, and of course my co-host Josh Miller. And Josh, if people are wondering, that name Earl Eichenbaum might sound a bit familiar to long-time CJAD listeners. Earl, tell us your experience here at the station.
Oh, I worked here way back when. We're trying to pinpoint the times, but for those of you who may remember the George Balkan and Gord Sinclair days, I was in production for 3 or 4 years, full-time, part-time. Best years of my life, professionally, I must say. A lot of fun, and some of the names that are still on the air here today I worked with. It was great running into people like Barry Morgan and Rick Peterson, and it's fun. It's great. I highly recommend it for anybody.
Let's take one quick call for the guys at Total Events and Entertainment, 514-790-0991. This is Klasa. Hi, Klasa.
I'd like to know a bit about going into the DJ business. What do I need to start up if I want to do my own DJing?
Going into it, you got to just volunteer. You got to, suggest that you can work for family members, get that experience under your belt. The more that you're out there, the more you're going to learn. There's no real great training or school for this industry. It's all about experience and all about learning and dealing with what's thrown at you on an event.
I also think character is very important too. I mean, again, I have to emphasize that today it's not just about DJing. There's other dimensions that kick in. There's 2 different categories of DJing. You have the technical guy who pushes the buttons, perhaps picks the music, and then you have the guy out there, who's working the crowd. So it really depends, but you need personality. You cannot be shy, that's for sure, and you have to have a certain dimension about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's thanks for the call. It's an interesting question, and I guess we're talking about. I mean, that you're in a people business. You are making sure there are people entertaining the crowd, serving them properly. Where do you find your talent pool, and have you been fortunate along the way?
I can honestly say we are extremely fortunate. We've surrounded ourselves with some of the most amazing people in the industry. And not necessarily that came into it that you would say, oh, this person worked for another company. We've developed people. We've seen that sparkle in someone's eye, that glimmer in their eye of saying, I love this industry. I really want to work in it. And one of the girls who works in our office, Julie, when she first started with us 6 years ago, she said, I work to live. And now if you ask her, she says, I live to work. She really loves just being there. And the clients feel that. People feel that. They feel that energy. They feel people out there wanting to be on their events and work with them. And like I said, we've developed a great team and we're very fortunate.
Is it hard to find people? I mean, in your business to have the right talent, the right experience, because you're planning events, you're with could be several hundred people, and they need a little bit of experience under the belt. So, do you have a hard time finding people?
It could be thousands of people. I mean, we cater to all kinds of different communities and size crowds, but you can't just find them. There's no school, there's no training for this. It's really seeing that personality. I think, like Earl said earlier, this industry is all personalities. So if you see that person, or if we meet that person and we say, hey, this person would be a great asset to our team, that's how we find them. We get resumes, I would say dozens a week, from people who want to be party planners, who want to be event planners, and we are not event planners, we are designers and producers. But every once in a while you find that characteristic about somebody that just stands out. And like in any business, good help is hard to find, good people are hard to find. The key is we've had staff with us for 15 years, 12 years. We've had a very small, very low turnover. And that's part of the key of knowing that our people make us.
Our guest on at today's Entrepreneur, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment, 514-790-0991. It's 723.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
On the program this evening is Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt. They are with Total Events and Entertainment. And earlier, gentlemen, we were talking about personnel and how important it is, because a lot of people think that it's just, to throw a good party, just throw a bunch of energetic young kids in there. But it's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Needless to say, we get lots of people who come to us and say, hey, I made a party for my friend. I'm now an event planner. Or I made a party and I'm ready to go. It takes years. It takes truly years. There are companies out there who are putting little kids out on events and saying, hey, you're spending your money, trust a 14 or 15-year-old. You cannot do it. Part of this job and part of this industry is experience. And like I always say, I like to sleep well at night, knowing that there's maturity on a job, that there's people who, if you're spending anywhere from 10,000 to millions on your event, that you have mature professionals running those events.
So if the DJ is the same age as the boy being bar mitzvahed, that's a red flag.
It's a big red flag. Okay. Exactly. There should be at least a generation gap there at a minimum.
You're dealing with so many different types of people, whether it's corporate or private. And I know there must be a ton of areas and a ton of documentation. You must go through contracts. So the importance of contracts to deal with, whether it's your people, your subcontractors, your people, must be hugely important in your business. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I know one thing for sure. When we first started off years ago, our contract was essentially one page with 6 clauses. Today, it's 4 pages with, 20 or 30 clauses.
Easily.
All of which are added, have been added over the years based on experience. Pretty much standard stuff. There's 1 or 2 people will look at and say, can you explain this one to me? And I guess that's what we would call the no fun clause. And this is a very important point, I think, to mention in events where you can have the best people. You can hire the best staff. You can have the best food. Lauren can suggest the best lighting. But a party is only as good, as Lauren mentioned before, as the spirit they bring to it. And sometimes you do have situations where a party just does not work for whatever reason. The guests don't get into it. They don't want to dance. And, people say, well, that wasn't such a great party. Fortunately, it does not happen often, but there has been a time or two over 15 years where somebody says, hey, look, we didn't have fun, so there's you guys didn't do your job right. And this is where we developed a clause that says, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says that we are not responsible for the outcome of your party as far as the fun aspect of it. They don't have fun, it's not our fault. As long as we provide what we are supposed to provide, and to our best ability, we cannot be blamed for that.
And I think the most important part here is it's not so much the clause itself, it's the question, it's the part that they've learned over the years. I mean, there's so many entrepreneurs out there that have to learn from their experiences. Yes, you started off with a one-page contract at the beginning, but you know what? It took time and it took effort, and they applied what they learned, and that's hugely important. You got to build on your experiences.
Today's Entrepreneur continues with Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment. It's 7:30 right now on CJAD.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Coming up to 7:34 on a CJAD. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar, along with my co-host from Fuller Landau, Josh Miller. And Josh, our guest this evening, very entertaining couple of guys from Total Events and Entertainment, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt. We're just coming out of a recession, gentlemen. Do you find that a lot of your clients have been scaling back when it comes to their big celebrations?
Let's just say it's been a special couple of years. There's no question, as Josh was saying before, we're a luxury item, so to speak. Although we're a luxury item, there's still a necessity for what we do, whether it's on a corporate level for employee excitement and keeping the employees entertained. They get very antsy when their Christmas parties are cut, I can tell you that much. Back in 2008, we felt it pretty heavily in the corporate market during that December, where there was tons of cancellations last minute. One of the things that we consciously went into the recession knowing was, don't compromise. Don't compromise our quality. Don't compromise the standards. And we felt it. I mean, we felt 2 years of a tough economy and people cutting back and trying to find ways to cut corners. But we basically said to our clients, we are not going to reduce the quality of what we're doing just to reduce the price. Here are some creative ways of putting your money to better use. And that was, I think, the key where a lot of people went the opposite route.
Did you have to deal with it from a financial aspect? Did it hit you on the bottom line as well?
It's interesting because in 2008, I believe we really felt it towards the end of the year. 2009 was tough. We had made some decisions to streamline the business, certainly not at the expense of our beloved staff. We just tortured our suppliers pretty good. We shopped our products and services that we required out more than we ever did before, whether it would be printing or whatever we needed. We just were very careful. We would ask for multiple quotations. One thing I think Lauren did very well, because he handles that side of the business, is we just maximized the assets that we owned. So we cut down on capital spending. We didn't purchase any more sound or lighting equipment than we needed. And we just made sure that we used stuff that we owned that, as I'm sure you know, Josh, in business, if you got it, you use it, and it generates more revenue, and don't buy. Use what you got.
Did you have to deal with cancellations? I know a lot of businesses that had a lot of orders canceled throughout.
Sure.
And when it first hit, certainly on that Christmas season, there was a lot of corporate cancellation. In the private market, and we have a bit of that luxury of having both markets, the private market did more what we call a scale back, or I don't want to use the word skimp, but they would try to find ways to say, how can we do this for a little bit less? How can we, reduce this cost? And like I said, that's where our creativity came in. And the key with our industry, never panic. So we didn't panic. We said, we're going to make a beautiful event for you. Here's where your money is better spent, and here's the new budget. This is what we're going to work with.
At a wedding or a bar mitzvah, what's the first thing that's cut? I mean, are we talking like the ice swan sculpture? Or what's one thing that gets cut right away?
Of course, it's the dancing elephants.
I think it's the second cousins.
Yeah, exactly. Well, funny enough, that's actually what happened. Was we saw this scale back of, do I need Auntie Sally and Uncle Joe to be at this party, or do they really not want to be there anyway? So we're going to invite the people that really want to be part of it. And food and beverage makes up half the budget typically on an event. So when you reduce that, you reduce drastically.
I want to go back to, we started talking about banking and financing a little while ago, and we're talking about the recession. We're talking about hitting the bottom line, and it can be struggles. How has your financing over the years handled a little bit of the waves, and what's been your banking experience?
Well, the banking experience is fascinating because we do something that I believe is somewhat unique, regardless of our size. We're not corporate Canada here. But we actually bank out of Quebec. We bank in Toronto, and a lot of people, when they receive our checks, they say, how come we see Richmond Hill, Ontario? And the reason is when we started in business, we started with a let's say, not a known bank, not a national bank. And that was a horrible decision, especially when we asked for a line of credit. Again, we're going back 15 years, and we were flatly told no. It's time to move. And then we moved to a TD Bank. I'm embarrassed to say that, here in Montreal. And they were wonderful to a certain point. And then when we had asked to increase a minimal line of credit they established for us, they said due to, at the time, political situations in Quebec and the issues they had within their own banking structure, that they just couldn't give us the line of credit we were looking for. And we weren't looking for all that much more than the $10,000 that we probably had at the time. Strangely enough, I was in Toronto for my other business and came across a TD Bank relationship manager. And we were just yapping, and she said, who do you bank with? And I explained to her the challenges that we had here in Montreal. And she said, well, we might handle things differently. And I said, you would? How? She said, well, do you have personal equity? Yes, I do. You've been in business for a few years? Well, 2 or 3 years. Do you ever have any trouble with the bank's credit cards? I said, zero, none. She said, well, send me over your numbers. Let's take a look. And again, not being afraid and shy to talk numbers. I mean, we probably went from a $15,000 line of credit to $100,000 at that point, and this is going back 10 to 12 years ago.
So it's really about finding the right person to take care of your business. I mean, at the end of the day, they probably have very similar resources, but each professional has their own style. So, I guess with banking, you found that out. I mean, are there other professionals you kind of dealt with that have...
I will say, though, Josh, and this is very important, when dealing with the banks for small business, you're only as good as your last financial statement, and you're only as good as your word. The banks will work with you as long as you don't play around. If you're a horror story in business, they will not cooperate with you. But when you produce good numbers and report on time and work within the covenants that they set for you, you will never have an issue. And I'm very proud to say my relationship with the TD Bank has been fantastic.
So credibility is huge.
Absolutely.
And you got to stick to your word because, and Dan, I have to totally agree. The last thing a bank wants from any business person is a surprise. Mm-hmm. Keep them in the loop. Keep them notified if there's a change. Let them know. And if they're going to ask you a question, answer them truthfully. And if you don't want to answer truthfully, don't answer at all. Because when your credibility gets shot with a bank, that's it. Forget about the growth. Forget about the future. So I think it's an important lesson for everybody to learn.
And a lot of small business owners, I'm sure, would look at banks and say, well, they're all the same. But in reality, as you proved, I think you might have to interview different banks before getting going.
Absolutely. No different with any other key supplier, whether it's your bank, your accounting firm, your lawyer, and even your suppliers.
Do you take the time to make sure you have the right people surrounding you? And how do you do that?
For sure. Let's look at accounting, for example.
We're on the spotlight.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah.
When we started in business, I thought it was the right idea to use a one-man show, essentially, that I had known for several years. He was handling small business. Yeah, okay, the price will be right. And eventually, it's like a pair of shoes. You grow out of it. And it was the bank, actually, who told me that, you know what, you guys have grown. You're much bigger now. We want you to report a certain way, and we will not accept a statement from a one-man show. And they set the law, and that's where we did some homework, and we ended up with your firm.
You were talking about, I guess, a little bit of growth, and certainly combining with the recession. As entrepreneurs, you can't always rely on your last great thing. There must be other ways. I guess you have to occasionally look to reinvent yourself or diversify. Is that a philosophy that you've taken into account?
I think any smart businessman will diversify. You can't put all your eggs in one basket because you've seen what happens to other people who've done that. They go bankrupt, they go under, something happens. What we've always done is we've looked for ventures that are related and sometimes unrelated. Earl and I own two businesses completely unrelated to each other, but certainly on the entertainment side, we opened an event space called the Loft Event Club, which has been a completely separate business within the realms of Total Events. And we've also launched an online software called ManageMyEvent.com, which, again, diversifies what we do within our knowledge base as well.
Tell us about that online venture and how you got into that business.
Wow, I can say that we knew nothing about going online or about online businesses aside from owning our Total.ca domain for 15 years. That was about as much as we knew. I got tired of receiving Excel spreadsheets from clients. That's really what it came down to. They give me these Excel spreadsheets with their guest list, with their details completely mangled. So what we did is we created an online management software that was idiot-proof, user-friendly, and it gave us a source to be able to log in to see what they were up to as well, keep them organized. And what we did is we turned it around and we ended up selling it to planners all over North America to use with their clients to keep them organized.
It's okay to boss around your clients once in a while if it's for the greater good.
If it's for the greater good and it fills your pocket, but they feel good at the end of the day. Gentlemen, it's been a great story. I would love to hear, over the years, you've certainly accumulated some knowledge about entrepreneurialism. What piece of advice would you give to today's entrepreneur? Each of you, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's a tough one. I can tell you that it takes a certain individual. You have to be of a certain type to transition from the comfort of employment into self-employment. You have to be psychologically and financially prepared to do so. You learn very quickly the advantages that one has being self-employed. And I learned that real quick. I could spend an hour doing that or explaining my reasons behind that. And you learn very quick. You must learn. You must adapt. You must pick a great business partner that I have in Lauren. I'm very proud to say that. If two people do the same thing, then you don't need a business partner.
I agree with that. What makes our business partnership successful is that we both do completely independent roles within the company, and we respect what each other does. As far as advice to other entrepreneurs out there, don't be shy. That's really what it comes down to. You got to be confident in what you do. You got to be proud of what you do, and you got to get up every morning saying, I want to do this, and be confident in what you're delivering to the end user.
Our guests are Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment. And after the break, Nick Moraidis will join us, a tax partner with Fuller Landau. And if you have any text questions, 514-790-0991 and Star Talk, star 8255 on Bell Mobility, 745 right now.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:49 on CJAD. Welcome back to today's entrepreneur. Our guests, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment. We also welcome to the program Nick Moraidis. He's a tax partner with Fuller Landau. And Nick, right off the bat, we will talk about on this Valentine's Day spousal issues relating to tax. But first, you do have some advice for Earl and Lauren.
Well, one thing that Earl and Lauren you should realize, and in discussing with your clients as well, when you're doing an employer-hosted event, and the event is open to all the employees of the firm. All the meals and entertainment costs that go through that are not caught by the special 50% deduction rule. So an employer can write off the entire cost, such as a Christmas party for event or an outdoor day. If all the employees are available and you're organizing that is 100% deduction for the employer.
But what if there are spouses there?
Mm-hmm.
Now the spouses, that doesn't work. That would be actually could even result in a taxable benefit in that case. So you would have to be careful on that one.
So where do you draw that line?
You draw the line. Well, if the spouse is there and the employer is paying for the spouse, I always suspect that would be a taxable benefit then.
So in keeping with this lovely Valentine's Day, as we all look forward to getting home later with our loved ones, Nick, is there anything that entrepreneurs should consider when thinking about their spouses?
Well, my wife reminded me about Valentine's Day this morning. You see where I am tonight.
Yeah.
But some of the things that I guess we should look at, it's as one of my staff mates, Susan Bowich, was talking to before we showed up here. It's nice to buy chocolates and flowers and jewelry. It's nice for love, but a smart modern day couple also is looking to build wealth and try to do it throughout their married lives. And some of the stuff we should be looking at, as an example, is really trying to share that wealth, share that income ability between the two, because our tax rates are lower. So one example today is if a spouse is earning a lot of income, lends money to a spouse who's earning no income, charges the prescribed rate, which is a rate that the government determines every 3 months that you're supposed to charge, which is 1% today. The spouse will pay, say it's the wife who's receiving the money, will pay the husband that 1% every year. She takes that money, reinvests it. That income is hers, less of the 1% to the husband. And all of a sudden, rather than pay, say, a tax rate of 48% if the husband is in the 48% tax bracket, you'll be paying maybe a rate of 20 or 30 or maybe 0% for the wife.
So legally shifting income from one spouse to the other.
Buy a loan where the interest is charged and the interest is paid. That can be done. If you decide that, here, honey, here's $100,000, go invest, the government will come back and say, well, that's very nice, but you're paying the tax.
Today's Entrepreneur continues in just a moment. Our guests, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment, as well as Nick Moretus, tax partner with Fuller Landau, to address spousal issues when it comes to tax. CJAD time is 7:53.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:55 on today's Entrepreneur. Our guests, Earl Eichenbaum and Lauren Levitt of Total Events and Entertainment. Also joining the conversation is Nick Moretus, tax partner with Fuller Landau. And Nick, this being Valentine's Day, of course, so one great gift could be shares in a small business.
Absolutely. In many instances, as I said, part of it is the sharing of the income over time, and you can do it through ensuring that you're paying a reasonable salary to the spouses assisting you in the business. That is perfectly legal, provided that there is work being done.
It has to be reasonable, right? It
and it has
can't
to
just
be
be $1 million.
So if,
for...
yeah, that's right. If the spouse is working an hour a week, you cannot pay them $100,000 a year and say that's a reasonable salary. That's obvious. That's where businessmen do run into trouble. Another area is adding the spouse as a shareholder into the family business. It provides her with a source of dividends should you do pay dividends. And if a spouse is at home taking care of the children, say, she could receive $25,000 of dividends every year, essentially tax-free, by making her a spouse. There's a lot of rules to follow for that to work. You can also include a family trust in lieu of the spouse owning shares direct for family planning purposes, because that will allow them to receive dividends through the trust as well.
Does the government come and check to see what the spouses are actually doing in the business?
Yes, they do audit that. If the spouse is earning a paycheck, they will come in and check that the spouse is actually there in the business doing something. Do not expect that I'm going to put my husband on my payroll for my business and he can stay home all day and never know where the office is. That doesn't happen. And what ends up happening is that salary that your spouse was being taxed on gets added to yours with the penalties and the interest. So there has to be an effort that spouse is actually there, knows where the office is, and knows what to do.
And I guess not that we want to bring up any negative topics on Valentine's Day,
no.
But if the spouses are not getting along and there might be a separation in the works, I guess the entrepreneur just has to be aware that when he goes into this type of agreement or type of income splitting, that there can be consequences, and he does have to take that into consideration.
Well, it is Valentine's Day, and we don't usually think of that. But yes, there are situations where you would want to protect yourself, and it could be with agreements. It could be through the family trust to ensure that all the family benefits, including the children, which are, I guess, are the happiest event that can come out of Valentine's Day, and to protect the family going forward.
Well, I'm not actually going home with a gift, so who knows what's going to happen when I get home.
We'll make them shareholders of our company.
Make them shareholders. Thank you very much, Nick and Earl and Lauren. I must say, in listening to all the stories this hour, what really the takeaway I get is the devil is in the detail. I mean, you have to learn along the way, but you have to apply what you learn. The smallest things, whether it be the contract, whether it be learning what, that you can include spouse and doing some income splitting and strategizing, whether it's listening to the customer or applying your own strategy or benefit, and even knowing when it's time to reinvent yourself or when it's time to diversify. You really got to pay attention to all those aspects, see the forest from the trees a little bit, but know when you have to take that step back. And not necessarily all entrepreneurs have that mindset and have that viewpoint. And I really think it was really well established with Earl and Lauren in Total Events and Entertainment. Thank you very much, guys. Really look forward to seeing you next.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much. And don't forget, you can reach Fuller Landau on their website, www.flmontreal.com. And this program, Today's Entrepreneur, returns February 21st. That's Monday at 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m. And next week is Alain Simon Fleurs. We get to hear how the flower store operates, certainly with events and planning and all that, to continue along that way.
And I'm sure he'll have lots of stories to tell after today. Anyway.
Clearly.
Thanks very much, Josh Miller. And Delmar at Night is next on CJAD.